The dimension itself and bending space would be the easiest way to describe Kamui. It literally means the might and majesty of the gods, particularly the Shinto Kami. It's a space-time ninjutsu that can be used with Obito Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan. This technique is probably the most complicated one, which needs a little explanation. And this is the topic I want to talk about today. But before starting, I want to ask you all to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more. I hope all of you have a great day, and let's start the video. Using Kamui is the only way to travel to and from its dimension. This means that targets transferred there are trapped, forced to stay until Kamui's user lets them leave. Obito sometimes uses genjutsu on those he imprisons to keep them subdued. This also makes Kamui's dimension effective as a refuge, as anyone taking shelter there can only be reached by using Kamui. With Obito's right Mangekyo, a short-range version of Kamui is used. Obito most often uses this version on himself, sucking himself into his right eye to enter Kamui's dimension and then exiting back to whatever location he pleases. Sometimes he does this in order to escape attacks. Other times he does this in order to travel long distances. Obito can perform this teleportation at will and doesn't need to designate his destination beforehand, leading others to label it superior to the Flying Thunder God technique. Others can be sucked into Kamui's dimension through his eye in addition to or instead of Obito, and in fact it is faster for him to use Kamui on others than on himself. Obito is usually shown requiring physical contact with those he's using Kamui on, but this isn't always consistent. With Obito's left Mangekyo, a long-range version of Kamui is used. The user looks at a target and creates a barrier space around them, with the barrier's size being determined by the user. When the user concentrates, anything within the barrier is pulled towards its center, transferring the target to Kamui's dimension. When Kakashi first begins using this version of Kamui, he struggles to perform it with any accuracy, frequently missing his target. Even if he does hit his target, he has difficulty making the barrier space large enough to pull the entire target in time. He becomes accurate enough to teleport projectiles mid-flight, and later can make the barrier space large enough to teleport the demonic statue of the Outer Path's head. Additionally, it's viable to transport only selected body parts to mutilate his enemies, inflicting mortal wounds. Defense against this is impossible. Kakashi eventually learns to create the barrier around himself, allowing him to teleport just as Obito does. When both eyes Kamui are used on the same target, whether by a single user or two users working together, the teleportation speed is doubled. Alternatively, two Kamui can be generated separately to achieve a unified purpose. Obito uses the left Kamui to synchronize with Yomotsu Hirasaka, then uses the right Kamui to teleport to its associated dimension. With the two Mangekyo, users can also perform Susanoo, through which they can create Kamui Shuriken. This technique is probably the most hacked Mangekyo Sharingan ability. Unlike other Mangekyo Sharingan users, Obito's continuous and general usage of Kamui does not seem to deteriorate his eyesight, and likewise does not tire or strain his body. We can assume that it was due to the fact that he possessed Hashirama cells, which grants its user amazing healing abilities. It's interesting enough that although teleporting objects from a distance is the left eye's ability, Obito uses the right eye to teleport Kaguya's all-killing ash bones. Also, occasionally, Obito is depicted using Kamui without activating his Mangekyo Sharingan. After his death, Obito Uchiha was able to break the basic rules of life and death. Let me remind you of the impure world reincarnation technique, which binds the soul of a deceased person to a living vessel, restoring them as they were when they were alive in order to do their summoner's bidding. The soul of the intended reincarnated must also reside in the Pure Land, and Obito Uchiha has already made something like this. After Kaguya used her all-killing ash bones technique on Obito, she killed him. Obito was sent to the Pure Land where he met Rin and broke the cycle of life and death, just like Edo Tensei. He used Kamui to travel from the world of the dead to the living world. He noted that chakra is the power that connects this plane and the real world, and as such, he was able to teleport back to the world of the living to meet Kakashi Hatake once more. It seems Kamui is able to break the barrier between the living and dead world, and we can assume that it can bring a dead person back to the living world. We have seen other space-time ninjutsus, like Ameno Tejikara, Flying Thunder God, etc. They are able to travel across the planets or dimensions, but none of them showed us anything like this. I know that moment was just Kishimoto's excuse to give Kakashi double Mangekyo Sharingan, but at the same time, it indicates that Kamui is able to revive people like Edo Tensei. Although something seems very clear, it seems Obito can use this technique only on himself, because if he was able to revive other people, he would have revived Naruto using Kamui and not by giving him the abilities of other tailed beasts and 6 paths. However, we can argue that he was not able to revive Naruto because at that time, he only possessed 1 Mangekyo Sharingan instead of 2, and he revived himself only after getting double Mangekyo. I don't think any other space-time ninjutsu user is able to do that, and I think this ability is only unique to Kamui. It's not a coincidence that these eyes are called Might and Majesty of the Gods. This is the ability only someone with these blessed eyes is able to perform such a feat, which could break the cycle of life and death, and with it, Obito was able to return from the afterlife to the living world to visit Kakashi. Personally, I think there was no need for Kamui to be more broken than it already was. This is a technique which is practically impossible to counter if you are not a speed beast or the user of another space-time ninjutsu. But it seems beside having extremely overpowered Susanoo, double Kamui grants its user ability to temporarily come back from the dead and power up someone for a limited amount of time. Obito is not the only one who has made something like that. Hagoromo was also able to do something similar to that. Even after death, he was able to come back to the living world from the afterlife and boost Naruto and Sasuke temporarily by giving them yin and yang seals. And just like how Obito got his double Mangekyo Sharingan back after some time, the seals were returned to Hagoromo Otsutsuki. We can assume that after getting 6 Paths Chakra, Obito unconsciously boosted his Kamui, which granted him similar ability to Hagoromo Otsutsuki. We know that in the flash forward scene, Hidden Leaf is destroyed. It seems the Age of Ninja is ending and is losing to Kawaki or Ishiki. I think there is a possibility of Obito returning in Boruto and lending his Mangekyo Sharingan to someone, most likely to Kakashi again or Sarada. His double Mangekyo are the strongest and probably the most hacked in my opinion. It would come in handy in a battle against anyone. So I think Obito Uchiha may come back in Boruto and lend his eyes to either Kakashi or Sarada, similar to how he did it in the 4th Great Ninja World War. Anyway, I guess this is all for today. What do you think about this video? Will Obito come back in Boruto? Write your opinions in the comments, like this video and subscribe to this channel for more. AstroJack out. Bye.